Hi, I'm Jochen Schleser, founder of Saddlefit for Life, the #1 Saddlefit Academy in the world. Today I'm going to talk about the importance of the rider's fit and the impact to both the horse and the saddle. Why is the rider fit so important? Remember, the most of the time when there is a problem is caused by the rider's imbalance or the ability to give the aids properly to the horse. Let's think about this. Imagine you have to carry somebody on the shoulder. As a matter of fact, there was a time where the Australian eventing team couldn't place always in the top tier in the Olympic sports until they got a coach from Europe, and this coach was to teach the rider's seat how important it is, how much impact the rider has to the training to the horse and of course to the saddle fit. Now what they did is they made each other do piggyback race. So one rider had to carry another rider and they run from one end to the barn to the other end to the barn, but each time the coach told the rider, the person who was sitting on the backpack, to do something. So the first race back and forth, he says, I want you to really wiggle from left to back to front to right, and you could imagine how they were laughing, and of course they're all athletes, they give it their best, and the line was really uneven and they were exhausted before even they hit the end of the arena. And then they said, I want you to be able to sit very quiet, and they did the race again, and of course they're much faster. And what he did, he changed a couple things. He changed a couple instructions he gave the riders what to do. The best part, of course, they switched up. Once you had to be the horse and the other person had to be the rider. The best part was the feedback. The feedback from the person who was the horse. Just when this rider did just a little bit this way, the head a little bit this way, how hard it was for me to go down the straight line. Just the head. Imagine how this affects if it's your seat. You know, and this is why today, to this day, there's a riding school. It's the oldest school in the world. It's in Vienna. They teach since 400 years the importance of saddle fit to the rider. Well, they don't say that exactly like this. They talk more about the seat. The seat is the most important part, how we communicate to our horse. They are riding on the lunge line for an hour without the reins, and sometimes 3-4 months, half a year, up to a year before you're allowed to touch the reins, just to show you how important it is that the impact from the rider can make huge difference to the training and to the saddle fit to the rider and the horse. Well, the big questions we always have to ask ourselves: what is more important, the fit to the horse or the saddle fit to the rider? Clearly, it's to the rider first. It's just as important, if not more important. As they state in the oldest school in the world, in Vienna, if the rider doesn't have a pliable seat, in other words, he's comfortable in his saddles and is able to give the aids to the horse comfortable, then the horse is able to perform properly. If the rider is not comfortable in his seat, because the saddle doesn't fit, or he doesn't have the ability or the training, then the saddle will never fit the horse. As a matter of fact, the horse will suffer. So you could have a saddle what fits your horse perfectly, and then you have a rider what rides in the saddle what doesn't fit the rider. That saddle fit to the horse will not last, and it doesn't help the horse whatsoever. So how do you identify, is it you or is it the horse? So very often these are typical signs what tells you if the saddle doesn't fit you. You don't have the shoulder, hip and heel alignment. In other words, you're sitting on the horse, there's a stringer touch on your shoulders. Does it touch your hip, from the shoulder on to the hip to the heel? If that is not in one line, right there and then, you don't even have to trot, canter. You don't even have to move. Just sit, relax. If that's not in alignment, it's a clear indication your saddle doesn't fit. Common, unfortunately very common point is if the horse's balance alignment point doesn't align with your balance alignment point. We all know it. Every single rider who has ridden bareback, you know exactly when you sit too far back or too far forward, you're not sitting in the right spot, the sweet spot we like to call it. However, if a saddle doesn't fit you correctly, that saddle places you behind the horse's balance alignment point. So what do? You sit in the saddle, you're trying to catch up, you lean forward, your head goes bocky, you look like a chicken out of control. That is a typical sign if your balance alignment is not in one point. In the same time, like I just demonstrated with my head, is your head bouncing back and forth? Very often that's the case because you can't sit the trot. There's so many riders who love horseback riding. They started late. We call it the adult amateur riders who started late. The late baby boomers started to pick up riding and says, oh, I'm never going to learn how to ride the sitting trot. Yeah, if you don't sit in the saddle what doesn't fit you properly, that's a clear giveaway. The sitting trot, it's a very hard thing to learn, so do it in a saddle what fits you. So if you struggle to sit your trot, check if the saddle fits you. Most likely, if you can't sit the trot, saddle doesn't fit you, period. So what else we got? Very often when we do squats or we bend down, we know we need to bend down with our knees bending over the toes, right? So when you ride and you do posting trot and your toes and knees are bent out, your instructor will say, you don't ride properly. Something is off. Your toes and your knees point out. So you will feel the long-term pain in your hips and the knees will kill you. So if you sit in the saddle, relax, horse doesn't even move, and your toes and knees point out, that's a dead giveaway. The saddle doesn't fit you. Right? So knees and toes gotta go forward, not sideways. And last not least, a very common problem, huge common problem is if there is chafing or rubbing on the underwear line. A very clear indicator that the saddle doesn't fit you. So what's the conclusion? Remember, most saddle fitters only look at the saddle, how it sits on the horse. They don't really see you sitting in the saddle, right? Make sure that you get not only measured, your measurements on yourself, and how do they compare to the measurements on the saddle, on the top. Both factors is hugely important. It has to fit the horse and the rider. And as I mentioned earlier, it has to fit the rider first. So where should the saddle really fit? It has to fit in movement, not in the barn. So the most important part, and what we really stress at Saddlefit for Life, is we have to look at the 15 factors. 15! Not just the seat size or the flap length, that's just 2, but the 15 factors in movement. So the dynamic fitting, it is so important. Insist that your saddle fitter watches you and you being judged on how you ride. No, you're being judged how the saddle fits you. So it's very important that those 15 points fit you. If not, you always will be a burden to your horse. Thank you for watching today's topic, the impact of the rider. It is so important that the saddle fits the horse, but as we just discussed, it is even more important that it fits the rider. Hit the subscription button and click the notification bell. If you want to learn more about the Saddlefit for Life education, which is trusted by so many equine industries and professionals worldwide, tune in next time. I'm Jochen Schleser and I'm looking forward to see you next video. Bye-bye.